So yeah, just a quick overview of the National Microbiome Data Collaborative. As I mentioned, it started about 2 years ago now, and it's been a couple of years in planning with a lot of support from various federal agencies, since microbiome research crosses all of these different disciplines and fields. The main problem we're trying to solve is essentially, around this idea of data harmonization. How do we make microbiome research data from a variety of different disciplines and fields accessible and findable? What's really core and at heart to that is really the sample metadata and standardization around, all of these contextual data that describes the experimental data. It's not exactly the most scalable method in terms of what's being used right now is contacting PIs to get their data and kind of having to search through existing repositories. And so, ultimately the goal of the NMDC is to make that a more streamlined process so that researchers can go to one source and actually find that data in a standardized way, and that data is standardized, process standardized as well, and then be able to actually reuse that data in a larger meta-analyses and whatnot. Again, the overarching goal there is to make that microbiome data fair, as I mentioned already, with the goal of really crossing all of the different microbiome disciplines, even though we're actually a DOE-funded project to start with, but the long-term goal is to span all the different disciplines. And I think one of the really big important things is that although we're building this infrastructure to make this findable, essentially half of our aim and vision is really focused on community engagement. As you could imagine, anything that regards is with regards to data sharing has to come from a community. It has to be community led, and there needs to be this large culture change in terms of how people view and prioritize data sharing, especially because there's so much work that is entailed with preparing that. And so in terms of our infrastructure, as I mentioned, of course, is the metadata standardization that we're focused on. That's really the sample metadata, contextual data. There's also standardization in terms of how we process that data, and then making that available through kind of the science gateway that we're building. In terms of engagement, we're definitely, of course, partnering with researchers. They're a core target audience since we're building this for them. So getting their feedback early on from the very beginning stages of the project, and iteratively taking their feedback and building and making the infrastructure better. We're also partnering with societies and getting their input for how to better engage with their communities and how to elevate and come up with things like, awards to encourage, data sharing. We're also engaging with funders to find better ways of, how do we prepare data management plans and potentially get the NMDC written into that so that folks are aware and can use our resource when identifying where to share their data. And then probably most importantly for the researchers, we're also partnering with publishers. And so, this really comes back down to sort of this like carrot and stick model where, this would be the carrot is, thinking about data citations and, how to encourage researchers to actually share their data. I think a lot of people don't do it because they don't really get recognized for it. But talking with journals and understanding the metrics that would matter to them and building this kind of larger system infrastructure so that the recognition gets built in. I just wanted to quickly show our prototype so that folks could see what we're actually building. This is, you would come to a homepage like this and start searching for data. And the goal here is essentially, you can explore and just gonna go find various data sets that you're interested in based on all of these different contextual data. And that's really why all of the standardization that we had talked about matters so much. What's also really unique about the project is that it is a very community-centered design process that we apply. So we are engaging with the researchers from the very get-go in terms of asking for feedback that informs everything about these various stages. And then we kind of iterate on in this sort of iterative process that continues over and over again. This is definitely different and unique, and I think a lot of researchers are thrown off by it because they're like, why are you showing me something that doesn't fully work yet? But I think, you know, it's really important to be able to get to a minimum viable product in this way. And so it's been fun so far. One thing I do want to stress though is that despite all of this that I've showed so far, we haven't formally publicly launched yet. So that prototype that I showed, we're aiming to launch it at the end of February. And so all of our community efforts that we're doing is sort of in a planning stage. We have some things that we've kind of launched in terms of like a champions program, although it's a little slow going because it's hard to sell something when we don't have anything to show. So that's been definitely a struggle, and we could talk more about that in the Q&A section. But yeah, we're definitely probably one of the younger communities, at least on this panel. But yeah, I'll stop there.